Hello, my name's Sam. I'm the iOS team leader at Three-Sided Cube, and I am with Neil.
Yeah, and I'm a iOS engineer at Cube.
We are 2/5 of the iOS team, and we have gathered here today to talk about WWDC 2025, which has just happened. Was it last week? Was it the week before?
Yeah, it was last week.
How long have we procrastinated this? 1
Yeah.
week. That's not too bad.
Yeah, unless I'm lying. I'm sure Chris was there behind the producer desk, like saying it was 2 weeks ago. We should have had this done last week. Can I start by breaking the ice with it's hot as fuck, but it's hot as fuck right now, right? So you're somewhere luxurious. Talk to me about that.
Somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm not somewhere toasty. I'm in the UK, but much like you, I have a fan there on me because it's humid. It's so humid. It's horrible.
Yeah, my fan is just to the left of me, and it's oscillating, which is why I'm blowing in the wind, and then I'm not blowing in the wind.
Yeah, exactly. But you look like you're on like a sort of like a deck outside of a house. So you look comfortable. You look no, it looks nice. You're kind of glowing.
In lieu of a desk, I've got a windowsill. And it's working well for me. So, how was WWDC? Did you enjoy the keynote?
I thought it was good. I'm still transitioning, I feel, as though since COVID, having all of these videos for WWDC and not having the stage. I know it's been a long time at this point, but I think part of me feels like a little bit nostalgic for that era.
Did you prefer the stage?
I don't know if I prefer it, if I'm just sort of feeling nostalgic. I don't think there's any actual benefit to the stage. I mean, we get all the really cool visuals, right?
Yeah. And I did enjoy the stage versions, and obviously have just been addicted to watching these events for however long that I have been sentient. But the occasional demo that just wouldn't work. I have visions of Craig Federighi on stage demoing Face ID and it not working, and him like wiping sweat from his face as it continued to not work. But I think when COVID happened and it was like, oh shit, how are these going to run? Yeah. Seeing them just pull this like cinema grade, streamed in Dolby Atmos type vibe out the bag was really cool. And I'm still really enjoying them.
Yeah, they're really reaping the benefit of having their own production studio. I was going to ask actually, what year was it that you went to WWDC?
It was 2022. And actually that kind of had the best of both worlds, because obviously they streamed the same keynote on a massive screen just outside of
so that's how it happened
building, but then they did some on-stage introductions. So Tim Cook came out and Craig Federighi came out and had a bit of a hi, thanks for coming. So it was kind of a melding of the two worlds there, stage and screen.
That's cool. Do you want to talk about your major interest in WW?
Yeah, I think the last couple of years, the ones that I can remember, we had a thing at the end. So for 2023, had Vision Pro was dropped at the end, and that felt pretty unreal because it was just it's very infrequent that we get to see Apple launch a new platform. Oh. So that was really exciting. Then obviously last year we had the much rumored, hey, Apple's going to step into the AI field. So we were all just waiting for that at the end of the presentation. This year, kind of as we got to because I never really want the presentations to end because it's quite fun seeing all the new things we're getting. And then when it's like, and that is it, it's sort of disappointing because we didn't have a big announcement at the end because it came at the start, and that was liquid glass.
The liquid glass is great for those that have lived through the transition from skeuomorphic iOS to iOS 7, maybe have a little bit of apprehension as well as excitement, because whilst it looks sexy, it's going to bring us some engineering challenges for sure. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the aesthetic first. How do you feel about the aesthetic?
I really like it. As they were demoing it, I was like, oh my God, love this. Yeah. But I think I'm getting the sense that it has been divisive. I think it looks really cool. I don't know how it'll be actually in use, but I think it looks really cool. One thing I was thinking earlier today was that, do you remember when the dynamic island was new on the 14, I want to say the iPhone 14? All the animations that the dynamic island had was they were almost over the top. They were liquidy and it would blob together and apart and it would be quite exaggerated. And I kind of loved that. It was really fun. It was kind of, I would say it was the first bit of sort of fun coming back into the design of iOS for a little while, making it a little bit more playful. At some point, and I don't know when this happened, maybe it was even just after like one version or just a minor release, they reduced the animations in the dynamic island, maybe to make it less distracting because it's supposed to just sort of live in the periphery. But I was thinking about liquid glass and how they showed off again all of these really fluid, liquid animations and components blobbing together and apart and expanding and bouncing and all of that. And will that be reduced as we get closer to release or after release for the same reasons?
I can definitely see the devices having a bit of tweaking, though all of the light refraction stuff, I have a feeling that it feels relatively final. I don't think, having a look at all of the updated nav, tab bar and stock component designs, it doesn't look such a world away from where we are now. As you were talking about the size of the dynamic island animations, it kind of made me feel as though that at that point they've like sort of been slowly transitioning to bring in these like water-like elements. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. That's the jury's out to make a observation on that. But the what was the thing I was going to say about the so I actually on this I kind of I took a peek at the State of the Union just before this.
I've not caught the State of the Union yet, and I really want to. I just watched the recap.
Right. And I was sort of skimming through it, but I want to watch it in detail because there are some really cool bits in there. One of the things they touched on was how, much like the transition to iOS 7, all of the stock components, if you're using them minimally, will just be updated when you recompile your app. So we'll get that for free as engineers, which is kind of cool. But it'll be really interesting to see our apps in their current state that we work on suddenly have liquid glass. And I imagine we're going to face some sort of challenges with that.
Almost certainly. I mean, they say you'll get it for free, but there was the iOS where they love this change, by the way, made the nav bars and the tab bars transparent. They got rid of the background of those. And they were like, you just get it for free. It'll just work. It'll just work for your apps. But actually, in reality, we had enough customization going on with the tab bars and nav bars in our own apps that it needed the extra love to get it to look right and as intended and pretty. And I maybe pessimistically think that we will come up against the same thing. It's like, don't worry, all your components will be glass now. I think there may be work for us to do.
Yeah, totally. It's my wonder how, when we have cases where like there's a gradient to the background of our navigation bars, when we flip that to liquid glass, what's going to happen? Because at the moment, if you look at any of the keynote, the navigation bars are now translucent, and now you only have the buttons and the back panel. To be honest, it sounds very similar to the translucent change that you mentioned. One thing that I am really excited for, and this is maybe slightly more towards designer, but I wonder if we can get our hands on it, is the icon composer.
Yes, I'd kind of like to play with that.
Right, that would be a great way to spend like a sort of working day. I was looking at when I was looking at the State of the Union earlier, I noticed that they recommend something like 2 to 4 layers for each icon, no more, no less, which I think is quite interesting. So I'm excited for doing that and having a play with that.
I'm wondering what we'll do. Do you remember when they introduced like the tinted app icons and the dark mode app icons and all of that stuff? They were like, you can make specific changes to your app icon so that it works with this as you intend, or we'll just do it for you and it'll do it automatically, and we'll apply our like best guess AI treatment to your app icon. I'm wondering whether this will be the same. It's like whether if we don't update the app icons, Apple will just be like, hey, we did it for you. This is the system's best guess as to how you want this to look. Or whether we need to just, I don't know, flutter our eyelashes at the design team and be like, hey.
Yeah, totally. How much do you think this is a move towards trying to unify all of the products?
Well, I think that's one of the really nice things about it is you can tell all of Apple systems are Apple systems because even if the icons are different shapes or slightly different shading or whatever, like they're all fairly consistent anyway. But it was nice to see that they went in and just have treated all the systems with this same liquid glass treatment. And it does feel like it brings a little bit more coherency there than there was before. I like it. And I think as they were going through it, I saw kind of what they were going for, in that just when iOS 7 came about, and it's sort of just what's been iterated on, devices are very, very different now than they were then. And there are things that they're kind of catering for. Like, one of the things is moving important controls down to where your thumb can actually reach it on these massive iPhones that we have now, which is a nice change. But also, I suppose, having glass as the material and unboxifying things and moving it slightly in from the edges of the screen and matching the curved corners and everything. The glass means that your content is less obstructed, I suppose. I liked the Safari update a couple of years ago, where they moved the navigation bar down to the bottom and kept all of the controls down at the bottom and floated the bar and everything. It kind of feels similar to that, and I liked that change once my muscle memory had got used to it. I think that was a nice change to just make the content feel more important on the screen than the controls.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because they brought that up in the platform State of the Union. The Safari example is a common one, and they also bring it up in context of some of their other apps, that tab bar will shrink and grow as you scroll, depending on whether you've enabled it. So it's cool. Again, going back to the apps that we work on, it'd be really interesting to see how that will work with, our apps that we're currently on, and how that will look.
Yeah,
I
from
like
what I saw, a lot of the controls are hiding and showing and shrinking and growing depending on what you're doing.
And then another thing that I saw was that looking at a couple of the APIs that they're bringing, when people moved to iOS 7 back in the day, there's a very common Stack Overflow question, which was, how do I get the blurred background on this view? And so people were coming up with their like custom ways of managing that and creating that sort of shimmer view. They've actually brought an API out that provides that backdrop. So if you're on, for example, messages, and you're like tapping and holding something and some options spring up, that backdrop view, which is slightly translucent, is now just a view modifier we kind of get out of the box, which is really cool. So it feels like they're really encouraging the developers to dive into it this time, whereas I think maybe on the earlier versions, on iOS 7 transition at least, they were obviously inherently putting you in that environment, but they didn't necessarily give you the tool set to be able to do it so easily.
As the years have passed, they've definitely been better at allowing us to use all the same things as them. There was a lot more internal stuff, like for appearance, but also for other tools that were just only really, like, they were available, but they were private and we couldn't use them. Yeah. Or we could, but if we did, then the app would be rejected. I think there's less of that nowadays.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned, which was about having components, controls, which are easier for your thumb to reach. One other thing that they've mentioned is that they've changed the shape of a lot of controls. So if you notice some of the examples they show, rather than having like circular buttons, they're more like, for lack of a better term, like pills.
Yes.
Like small rectangular cards, which may be more suited to like your thumb, maybe easier for you to select, like having a wider control. So I thought that stuff, that's quite interesting. Were there any other things on Liquid Glass that you're interested in?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how it influences how apps are designed, because there'll be some immediate things like facilitating the new system controls and things. But there's the possibility that it will sort of nudge a shift on how things look more generally. Our filled nav bars and things of our current design era kind of come from that iOS 7 precedent that was set. If we never had that, would we still be designing skeuomorphic stuff? So does bringing in glass change how the apps that we make look beyond just the controls and the system that it lives within? But I think I am looking forward to just using it and seeing what it's like in the hand, actually in use, because that will be the real tell. One other thing that I'm really excited about is they've fixed the Photos app that they broke last year. It's not often that I, when they change Safari, I'm like, okay, cool, this is going to take some getting used to, but I see the vision, I see the improvement. When they changed Photos, I was like, no, you've just put everything in the same tab for the sake of it. I don't like it. Please change it back, or give me a setting to change it back. And they've changed it back.
Yeah.
A win.
No, definitely. I think going into the updated Photos app last year was so stressful, because rather than scrolling from the bottom where my latest photos are, they'd flipped it in for one of the default views on my version of the app. And I was like, hold on, you've ruined my muscle memory.
Yeah. And I like to give things the benefit of the doubt. If I'm unsure about something that's shown, I'm like, let's just see what it's like.
Yeah.
I tried to give it love, but it was not deserving of it.
Yeah. It's probably worth mentioning there's been a lot of I'd say negative reaction towards liquid glass with regards to accessibility, and sort of I've seen, I guess, for lack of a better term, like design 101. I see a lot of screenshots of people's control centers like hovering over their backgrounds, over their like desktops on the phone, and all of the clashing that happens between layers with glass. And I think those are the types of things that will get eked out and tidied over the next few months.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I mean, as we've seen already, there are accessibility controls that enable us to do things like solidify the glass background, so it's not so much a blurred view rather than just a translucent backdrop. On the macOS side, and this relates to you talking about how they've become more playful, I really enjoyed the folder colors. As soon as I saw that, my like organization brain was like, hell yeah, this is the color I'm going to use for documents. This is the color I'm going to use for photos. I'm excited for that. That's going to be really cool.
I'm not that organized. My work Mac, I will confess here as an exclusive, basically every file on my Mac is just on my desktop, not in folders. It's just like a billion files. And I think this was bad practice introduced when they introduced stacks, so that not all of the desktop icons were in their own thing and they disappeared into a stack. I'm so bad now. My downloads folder is just full of files. Desktop's just full of files without folders. Documents is the only folder where I have things sorted into folders, and that's only because it's the code repositories.
I think you can forgive yourself on the downloads at least. The desktop.
I like to think so. And I just delete those occasionally.
How do you search for stuff?
I think, to be honest, most of the shit on my desktop is screenshots and stuff that I'll never need ever again.
Okay.
But Spotlight occasionally. But I kind of know, like, I just go to the repos in Finder and via Xcode. That's all I do on this Mac.
Yeah, I completely get that. Because, you see some people who are like super Spotlight nerds and they'll just search for everything through there, won't bother going and navigating through documents. But I've still got that like Windows programmed mind from when I was a kid, where everything was a sorted document and you must go through nested documents to find your stuff. And if you wanted to search for something, the search indexing sucked. And so it's going to take a little while to find anything. So knowing your way around your docs were...
Yeah.
So, a side note, this is like kind of back to the folder tinting thing. Did you ever use the icon tinting from last year's iOS?
No, I didn't like how it looked. I just wasn't a fan of how that looks. It also made too many app icons look too similar, so I wasn't able to like tap on the right thing. However, what I did use was the dark mode tinting. So I have light and dark mode based on whether the sun is up or not on my phone, and I like that kind of on the eyes. Well, supposedly. And actually having the icons have a dark mode was nice. It just felt a little less bright across bits of the system that weren't apps. And the backgrounds as well had a dark mode to them. So I kind of liked that shift, but I wasn't a fan of the tinted.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Light mode, dark mode. And so you are someone that goes in with the transitional one that goes from day to night.
Yeah, I have dark mode and light mode for sunset and sunrise, and also the blue light filter thing to a small degree.
Okay, are you someone that has all of your IDs in dark mode all the time?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah. So my phone I have on light mode, dark mode for sunset, sunrise, but in order to just like have a bit of a mental differentiation between my work Mac and my personal Mac, I've got my work Mac in dark mode and my personal Mac in light mode, but both the IDE theme must be dark, because it looks weird in light mode.
I think there's two engineers that use light mode, and it's me and then someone else in our organization, also a member of our team. And
do you use it all the time? Do you use light mode all the time?
I actually more recently started using the dark mode in the evening, but before that, exclusively light mode. Exclusively. Yeah, I know. It gives a weird thing.
I don't know why I struggle with that concept, because Python I used to use light mode for coding, and also like every document, every pages of Word document, Google Doc ever is a white background. So I don't know why when I look at code on a white background, I'm like, oh, can't read that. It's too bright.
I think you're a tech elitist. You're like a dev elitist.
Hey, I don't want to push that on other people, but for myself,
don't worry, I will. You're all elitists if you're taking the mick out of me for using light mode. Can we talk about some of the killer apps and features that exist? Because there are some that have come out this year which are going to be really cool for iOS users. You can hear Android users go, oh, but we had that before. But for us, it's going to be the first time that we're going to have live translation, for example.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm very excited about call screening and hold for me. I pretended not to be jealous when Android got that years ago, but now I'm very, very up for it. That's the amount of times where I'm in a call queue for 45 minutes plus.
Oh, hell yeah.
Takes up far too much time to just have my phone ring when I get to the front of the queue. Oh my God, the stress that will reduce.
Dude, that is such a good feature. I wonder if the amount of people queuing for a call went up when that originally came out for Android. Because more people were willing to
need the patience for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now that iOS users are going to get it, we're all going to be like, our phone's just going to randomly ring like 5 hours later because we tried to call.
Poor call centers, honestly. But I mean, I think occasionally you'll have a call center that's like, cool, we'll call you back when we're free. But there are some that just have one soul on a loop. Yeah. Did you have any features on the other platforms? So on Mac and iPad and watchOS and visionOS and tvOS, were there any like standout things that you're excited about, thought were cool?
So live activity. A live activity on both the Mac OS, the live activity. So you're getting, if
live activity.
You've ordered something on Deliveroo, and it's going to pop up on my laptop whilst I'm working on there, and I can see it in the top right-hand corner.
I know live activities are from a previous WWDC, but they are so sensible to have. They make so much sense to reduce the loads of notifications from the delivery app on all of the phases. Just have it on the lock screen was a lovely thing to have, and nice to have it on the other things too.
Yeah, really excited for that. I'm also excited for the extended background modes for iPad OS, because we've got more power in the iPads. Apple are now letting us do bigger tasks, for example, video processing in the background, if that's what you want to be doing, if you want to be doing some video rendering in the background. That's kind of cool.
The multitasking on iPad is an interesting step, because it's very Mac in being able to move and resize all those windows around and a little pointy cursor and everything. I think that could be very exciting. While I was watching the event, I was thinking about what it is that separates an iPad with the Magic Keyboard and trackpad attached to a MacBook Air as they sort of approach each other a little bit in some senses. What the draw is to one versus the other when the weight is slightly different, like the iPad with keyboard is slightly heavier than MacBook Air. The capabilities are slightly lesser on our iPad. So things like, you can't run Xcode or anything on an iPad, but you can on the Mac. What the draw is one to the other. And I guess price point as well. I think iPad Pro with a keyboard is more than a MacBook Air. But then the iPads have the Mac chips in them now. It's an interesting...
Yeah. And actually, I mean, on the price point, you can get just like your regular bog standard iPad for, I think it's something like £400 Like it's not expensive for something that's really quite powerful.
Yeah, very true.
And yeah, it kind of makes you think is there one day where these are sort of eliminated and then there's just super products that everyone gets?
Yeah, but they do. I think they always reiterate, don't they? When they do something on one or the other that brings it closer to one or the other, they always say, hey, look, we're not merging them. We have no plans to merge them. Do you think they're lying?
Maybe. Who knows? On the other apps, I don't use messages. Do you use iMessage?
Yeah, I do for certain people. I don't really have any iMessage group chats, but I do have it for some just individual people.
Yeah, right. Okay. Because I guess for me, iMessage I never use. In fact, I've got it exclusively turned off so that it just uses normal text message, which is crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I guess this is sort of more reflective of where I live and what I do, because I'm in the UK, where WhatsApp is mostly used.
Yeah, WhatsApp is the primary one. Funnily enough, I don't really have anyone on WhatsApp. I think it so depends on the people the groups you were in, the people you've met, where you like. It just depends on so many factors. But I think most people I talk to on Instagram, which in an ideal world I wouldn't, because it's not a great messaging tool, but at least it's not Snapchat.
Yeah, you go there for a text, but stay there for a reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But there were some nice iMessage things introduced. There were some nice iMessage things. If I can twist people's arm and get them in a group chat on iMessage, be like, look, there are polls now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I think it is a bit of a shame because the interface is quite nice. I like the idea of all those animated backgrounds that you can have. I like that you can do polls. I like the idea that you can all send your memojis or your Genmojis to each other. I also like that you can send cash if you're in the US. So yeah, I think it's taken a lot of the best of like what's out there and then just keeping it stock in on what the phone has by default.
I have a few gimmicks. I'm a big fan of a gimmick. Big fan of a gimmick. Easily entertained. There are a few small things that I really am enjoying the prospect of. I was a big fan of Genmoji from last year. The output is pretty cursed, generally, I would say. But is it Mixmoji, they're calling it, where you pick multiple emojis and it'll just blend them into one AI emoji? I like that idea. That seems fun. On Vision OS widgets in your house. Like you can put a virtual clock on the wall, virtual calendar, photo frame, window into another world. That's very cool. It's really exciting.
Huge fan of that, yeah.
And another thing which I'm looking forward to is the photos. They showed this on iOS. Maybe it's applicable to the other platforms as well, but being able to convert a photo to a spatial photo and then sort of tilt your phone and see it in 3D with depth on your phone. I think that's quite exciting also. A gimmick, but I like it. But also, I think it's sort of similar to when live photos came about. That sort of moving picture thing felt maybe that was a little bit gimmicky. But now, if ever there are any photos that don't do that, it feels vintage almost. It's like, why doesn't it move?
Totally.
Where's the moment? So maybe, or maybe not.
I'd be interested to see if I import images into my library, whether I can make spatial photos out of them. Just because I take...
well, you can convert the Vision OS ones.
Yeah, well... Sorry, you can?
Yeah, so on Vision OS, you could take 2D photos, click a little button, and it would use AI to make it spatial. So I suspect you probably will be able to do the same on iOS.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because I would like that, because I'm someone who takes photos pretty much exclusively on either like a film camera or an external digital camera, and then I import them at a later point. So I would love to be able to, because that would just bring a little bit more vibrancy to them. You know what? I do enjoy coming across like things like live photos, for example. And I was speaking to my mum the other day, and she mentioned about how she loves live photos. So one of our dogs, rest in peace, passed away earlier this year, and she likes coming across those photos because you get a little bit more of that. You get the emotion, and you get kind of a sense of what they're like, which is a little bit more than a photo. It's really nice for that sort of thing.
It makes so much of a difference. I agree. And it's sort of the emotion, especially, not so much with photos of menus from a distance that I've taken, or like accidental table or pocket or floor photos where you're like, wow, my foot moving on the ground. That's less exciting. But when you do have photos of people or travel moments or pets, and you get to just get that tiny little glimpse of the moment when you were there, that's very nice. It adds a lot, I think.
You know what? I did a foot mask last night, and I took a picture of my foot in the mask. And so I'm just wondering whether that would be a good example of something I want to turn 3D.
Yeah, I don't think we need that in 3D.
Like a 4D horror show.
Were there any gimmicky little bits that brought you joy from the announcements? The folder colors, I suppose. Maybe you could argue that's not a gimmick.
Absolutely, yeah. The folder colors, absolutely. I think also I do like that they are bringing that was it. Yeah, I like that they're going to be bringing I can't remember what they're called, but like the short videos that get paired with your music that you're listening to, bringing that to home screen. I think that's quite nice.
Having on the lock screen, that's a nice touch. On Spotify, I've switched off those. Do they call them canvases on there?
Yeah, that's it.
I've switched them off on Spotify because often they wouldn't be the album art, and that would just confuse my brain to not know what the song
that's really
was
interesting.
or what album it was on. Whereas on Apple Music, it's consistently the album cover, but with some like subtle animation on it, or well, sometimes not subtle, but it is at least derived from the album cover, and I find that easier for my brain. So I do like the idea of having that on the lock screen.
Oh, that's really interesting. I thought the artist defines the canvas and the album art separately. Not sure.
Yes, yeah. On Apple Music, it tends to be just the album cover more consistently, which is nice.
Yeah.
Something else on Apple Music that I think is going to be really cool is that auto mix thing. Did you see that?
Oh hell yeah, yeah.
I've never liked the crossfade. It's a bit distracting. A few people on, because I haven't played with the betas yet, but a few people on Twitter have put their like just little recordings of them playing around with this auto mix feature, and it seems to do it really consistently well, and not just like matching the beats and blending it, but actually finding the end of the lyrics or the melody in one and finding the start of what is relevant in the next one and changing the tempo. Like, the output of that seems really cool. And one of my favorite things when listening to someone DJ is hearing how well they blend the songs is really, and like going, oh, what's coming in next. So have a little bit of that is quite exciting.
Yeah, totally. I think it will bring like a new flavor to people who like playlisting stuff and making playlists for themselves. I'm interested to see how that interacts with albums, because
I don't think it does it on albums. I think it's only playlists. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes sense, especially after the I think it was it Adele about like 7 years ago or something. Basically,
I remember.
Said, "Hey, Spotify, please play my stuff in order by default. Work on this order. Please do not mess it up." So,
yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, so I reckon they probably learned from that to not mess around with that. I did want to just touch on the foundation models. I don't really know much about how they work at the moment, but it sounds as though we're going to have some form of access to a small model on the device which can run, which you'll be able to do some level of Gen AI work.
Yeah, so it's Apple Intelligence's LLM, which last year was implemented across the system in the form of features. There was no really any direct chat access to it, unlike ChatGPT and things. It was more used in the background for features. As developers, we now get access to that on-device LLM. And I am really looking forward to playing with it and just seeing what an Apple-built on-device LLM is like compared to the magnitude of the server-side ChatGPT et al. I think that'll be really cool to play with, and one of a few fun little dev things that we've got to play with as well.
Yeah, totally, completely. I'm interested to see like speed, how performant it is.
Yeah,
because the nice thing is it's ran on device, so you won't have to deal with any latency with backend. But at the same time, it's going to be a smaller, lightweight model, so maybe the processing time is going to be a bit longer. The some of the list of things that Apple said that they think are good. Sorry, the list of things which Apple thinks it's good for. I've got a few of them noted here. So like content generation, generative dialogue, in-app user guides, personalization, summarization, and then various others.
Yeah,
which I thought cool, interesting, gets the brain working as to what I can do with that.
Yeah.
And I think you can even tag the data that you've got to help improve the model. So it seems like, I don't know, it seems relatively flexible and simple to use. It doesn't seem like you're going to have to know a lot about machine learning to be able to just get up started in building stuff.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to getting the beta when it's a little bit more mature. To then play around with the that's going to be really cool. And another dev highlight for us is Swift Assist is promised once again, but in the form of something closer to the other AI IDEs that have been knocking around for a little while now. We will get ChatGPT in Xcode proper. No need for any copy pasting or weird settings on the ChatGPT app. It's just right in there. You can choose the model you want to use, and it doesn't need to be ChatGPT. That's going to be a really nice little speed boost for developing, and finally don't have the FOMO from all the other teams using Cursor and Windsurf.
Yeah, totally. What's out of curiosity, what is your workflow like now? when using AI?
So I have the ChatGPT app installed, and you can give it some access via settings, system preferences, to be able to use certain apps. And one of those is Xcode. So it can read the file that's currently open and it can make changes in that file as well. So I have the ChatGPT app open alongside Xcode.
How are you finding
do
it
you
working
do?
with it that way?
Yeah, I think it works pretty well like that. It'd be nice to take out the step and have it directly in Xcode. And also, I know one of the original promises for Swift Assist is that it would be trained on Apple's own recommendations for how you should be coding in Swift and all of the new tools and technologies. I find
Oh,
myself
cool.
having to remind ChatGPT, hey, please use concurrency and not
Yeah.
closures. Please use this new feature and not this ancient crusty one.
Yeah, completely.
What's your AI workflow?
At the moment, it's a copy paste in ChatGPT, but I've got a few GPTs for different things.
Mm.
Like, for example, I have one which will write documentation after I've finished some work. And I've just given it a
Yeah, I
bunch
like
of
that one.
guidelines.
Stole that one off you.
Yeah. And then I've got one which also reviews my work. And so if I've just like written a bunch of stuff, I'll just put it in there and then it critiques my work so that before I put it into a pull request, then it's already had some sort of look. Then that's okay, but it's a bit hairy because I quite like to omit things like secure keys and stuff from the code that I'm sharing with it. So there is a little bit of like a labor step between each time I put something in there. But generally speaking, that's it. I'm interested to know what it feels like to do it all in one. I've done a little bit with the ChatGPT integration, the Copilot integration with Xcode, which is like I think it's semi-unofficial. I found it okay, but sometimes I felt like the user experience of it wasn't really that fun. Like it was kind of interjecting and adding stuff that I wasn't actually intending to do. So I'm imagining at this point it's probably a little bit more improved and a lot smoother. And as you say, with the Xcode, a direct Xcode implementation, I'm sure that Apple care about that experience for engineers more so.
Yeah. Is there anything else that was announced or looked at, or anything you saw in Platform State of the Union, which of course I've not seen, that we want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, we're all good. I think that is everything.
Yeah, I think there was some good stuff. I'm excited to actually see it all in action. Of course, we had the same excitement, if not more, last year, and then we didn't get half the stuff that they announced, and they dropped us a little bit. They didn't meet our high quality bar, like they mentioned in WWDC this year. So maybe the trust is a little bit scarred, but I'm looking forward to getting my hands on this, playing with it, seeing what it's all like, and we will come back together and we will talk about this in September when things are out and about and have a little bit of a chat about it all again. But I think that brings us to the conclusion of our post WWDC wrap up.